Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Tonight I'm going to be reacting to Stalin's paranoid military purges, the Great Terror, between two wars, 1938, part 4 of 4 by TimeGhost History. If you want to check out my previous reactions to other TimeGhost History between two wars videos, remember the playlist card is going to be at the top. Just click on it and be able to access them. If you want to check out the original video as well as TimeGhost History's YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. Okay, let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
It is one of the most self-destructive series of events in Soviet history. It is an escalation of the already oppressive, suppressive, murderous behavior of Joseph Stalin's regime. It is a parody of justice and a disgrace even to communism. It pits friends against friends, spouses against spouses, children against parents, and destroys the social fabric of the Soviet Union. It is a sign that Stalin is not only ruthless, but pathologically paranoid. It will cost hundreds of thousands of lives over mere months, and its consequences will waste millions more. It is Stalin's Great Terror and military purges. Welcome to Between Two Wars, a chronological summary of the interwar years, covering all facets of life, the uncertainty, hedonism, and euphoria, and ultimately humanity's descent into the darkness of the Second World War. I'm Indy Nidell. We saw in our episode on the Holodomor that Stalin is willing to have perceived enemies or undesirables killed by the millions. Political terror is a cornerstone of 1930s Soviet politics, and as historian Hiroaki Kuromayo will later describe it, it was a policy of extraordinarily intense, concentrated, and purposeful killing of at least hundreds of thousands of people. This is not limited to specific operations directed at particular groups, like the Ukrainians. Hordes of Soviet citizens and soldiers get caught up in the hysteria and are sentenced to death by Soviet courts or purged from the army. The terror and the purges impact the entire Soviet community, and it trickles down from the most high-profile people in the army to the most modest farmer. Because it isn't just big names like Mikhail Tukhachevsky, the #1 military man in the whole nation since the revolution, and his colleagues who are killed on suspicion of being hidden enemies. It's anybody.
And to think, these are the same people who are helping Stalin to ascend to power. These are the same people who are fighting alongside Stalin and, his associates in fighting for their vision of Russia to come into fruition. These are the same people who have been with him in the trenches, if I can say, And here they are being purged out under suspicion of being spies or anti-revolutionary, or any other kind of excuse that will be given. Hey.
Okay, purges already became a thing in the Soviet military in the 1920s. They were used to improve ideological conformity and to get rid of anyone who didn't fit into the heavily politicized Red Army. In fact, most people living in the Soviet Union are by now already kind of used to the practice. So when the Great Terror takes hold of the Soviet Union in 1937, many ordinary soldiers and officers see it as their duty to report anyone who might be unfit for duty or who could be a threat to Soviet ideology. But while Soviet history has many twists and turns, with revolutionaries and counter-revolutionaries left and right, the events of 1937 really stand out. In the summer of 1936, a group of alleged Trotskyist counter-revolutionaries, including Lev Kamenev and Grigory Zinoviev, two of the original 7 leaders of the Bolshevik Revolution, are arrested and charged with conspiring to murder high-ranking Communist Party members.
I mean, imagine, like I said, these are the same people who have been, by your side, going through hell and all to fight for this dream of this brand new Russia. And then all of a sudden your comrades have turned on you. Now you are an anti-revolutionary. Now you're a spy, or you want to overthrow the current government. All of a sudden. Man. Politics is dangerous, bloody, messy. During that time in 1938, definitely.
But though the Red Army is supposed to keep a check on its own members, it is the NKVD, the secret police, which discovers the conspiracy. And with that, the trust in the Army's ability to cleanse itself from undesirables vanishes. This is the starting point of a thorough NKVD sweep through the Red Army's ranks. It's well illustrated by a letter sent to one of the most prominent Soviet political and military leaders, Kliment Voroshilov. The letter is from his friend, military commander Semyon Budyonny. It seems to me that it is necessary to check especially carefully people in the army, since in the ranks we see people from the command, the officers and political workers who, on the one hand, have careerist tendencies, and on the other, a tendency to consider serious questions not from the point of view of the state, but from a narrowly personal point of view, and also people who easily give in to any kind of influence, in particular, counter-revolutionary. Voroshilov forwards this letter, effectively damning the Red Army's military and political officers to both Stalin and influential Soviet bureaucrat Nikolai Yezhov. In September 1936, Yezhov replaces Genrik Yagoda as the new head of the NKVD on Stalin's orders. This is where things really start to escalate, as Yezhov is prone to conspiracy theories and even keen to make up his own. Also, he doesn't really much care about having sufficient evidence before putting someone on trial, or he just has it fabricated. The number of show trials and convictions rises sharply. The scope of the investigations into Trotsky conspiracies is widened, and the arrests grow in number. Furthermore, any industrial accident or output shortfall is explained as sabotage, meaning that many workers go down for this, especially since Stalin's 5-year plans have upset the industrial and agricultural sectors. People who had opposed the current leaders back in the early 30s or the 1920s are apprehended retroactively, and political enemies are taken care of. Yagoda himself is executed in 1938 after being found guilty of treason and protecting Trotskyists.
Whew, yeah. Everything is blamed on a third force, sabotage, anti-revolutionaries, all forms, all matters of, sedition, so-called sedition and betrayal against the state. Positions are deadly. You think you are safe in your position, next thing you're replaced, and the person who replaces you says that you are an anti-revolutionary and you're going to be executed. No court procedures, no proper arrest warrant, nothing. You're just taken away and you'll be shot in some sort of alley and they'll throw away your body. Hey.
But though Yezhov's appointment causes an escalation of terror, it's always Stalin who has the last word, but they are a deadly combination. When Yezhov writes to Stalin in September 36 that he believes there must still be Trotskyist officers undiscovered in the Red Army, everyone in the army who is even slightly associated with any undesired thought, movement, action, or individual is arrested. Furthermore, guilt by association is just as deadly, as the friends, families, and intimate colleagues of an arrestee are easily taken in along with them. People often report their friends or co-workers to get rid of any negative association that might cause trouble in the future. Also, the more people you report, the more the authorities would think that you are one of the good guys, right? And you can't just lay low and wait for all of this to blow over either, as doing nothing implies that you have something to hide. With someone like Yezhov at the steering wheel, who cares little for evidence or motive, being denounced means that often you will be sent straight to a gulag. And if you think it doesn't get any worse than this, you are mistaken. With the appointment of Yezhov and the trial and execution of Tukhachevsky, things are only really getting started. See, if even some of the Red Army's highest leaders, like Tukhachevsky, are involved in a conspiracy of that magnitude, then undoubtedly many others in the army below them are complicit. And those leaders were literal celebrities. Everyone in the army knew who they were. and many officers had in some way ties to them. And then those officers had links to the ordinary rank and file soldiers, so suspicion trickles down through the entire army. A Red Army newspaper article from June 14, 1937, calls for Red Army organizations to help the NKVD find conspirators and subversives. Yet,
sorry. I'm just surprised that, the Russian Red Army is still able to fight with its experienced, seasoned soldiers either being arrested, sent to prison camps, or executed, and now it's trickling down to the other, structures of the military. Literally, the chain of command is being unraveled. It's been broken. All that institutional knowledge, all of that experience is being uprooted. Crazy.
Nezhov and Voroshilov add another message on the 21st, urging their men to step forward while promising that, even if they are implicated themselves, they would not be arrested. In practice, the ones that do come forward are just as likely to be executed. In any case, there's no stopping it now, and though many might actually believe that their superiors are implicated in the conspiracy, there are those who abuse the opportunity to further their own careers or to settle personal feuds. Distrust sweeps through the ranks, and thousands are dismissed or put on trial, many executed. But if there ever was a danger here to the Soviet Union, removing that threat proves to be a lot more complicated. Police and NKVD lists keep expanding as investigations are made. Stalin's not always clear in his directives, and his subordinates have to guess what it is he wants. Furthermore, the Soviet Union has 170 million inhabitants in 1937. When the state asks people to report any suspicious behavior, the amount of work involved in just processing this is off the charts. They're using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. This does have advantages, though. It is a big-time propaganda project as well, as fear becomes a driving force behind a pro-Soviet mentality, and any loyalty beyond the state is to be destroyed, even commitment to family. Collateral damage is inevitable. There's no real or tangible evidence to suggest a coup or invasion is at hand. Instead, the enemy is always hidden. The enemy is always unknown, making every single person a potential suspect. I mean, what if the one person you didn't kill turns out to be the spider in the web of a lethal conspiracy against Stalin and the Soviet Union, right?
I mean, with that kind of thinking, that means everyone in Russia has to die. Everyone in Russia has to die for Stalin to be safe. Everyone. Because everyone is a potential, person who's going to take out Stalin.
In 1937 and 38 alone, close to 681,000 people are sentenced to death by the so-called NKVD troikas, a three-headed special council of the military tribunals from the Soviet Interior Ministry that uses simplified procedures that do not give the defendants rights. 635,000 more are sent to prisons and gulag camps, where many of them will die performing heavy manual labor. And these numbers are not guesses either. These are bureaucratically recorded, court-mandated sentences for political crimes, not the result of random chaotic killings. But just to get a grip on the scale, 91% of the death sentences passed by Soviet courts between 1921 and 1940 are passed in those 2 years, 37 and 38. Hundreds of thousands more are sent to gulags for other criminal offenses, making the total prisoners sent to gulags in 1937 and 38 1.36 million, resulting in the deaths of tens of thousands more. The scale of this all is really too large to do the victims any justice by remembrance. The ones that do make it into the history books are those most prominent Soviet political and military leaders including eventually 4 of the original members of the 1917 November Revolution Politburo. They too are executed in the purges. Many others who had acquired political renown in Soviet history are removed, often murdered. Additionally, multitudes of scientists, artists, writers, other intellectuals, well, those who were fortunate enough to make it to 1937 in the first place, are considered to be un-Soviet and are also killed or sent to the gulags.
To think, like all these people, many of them, they were celebrating this new revolution. They were celebrating this new path of the country. And now the very country is killing them. Killing their families, sending them off to prison camps to go die there. It's sad when the cause betrays you.
The same applies to ex-kulaks, the Orthodox clergy, and ethnic minorities like Poles. As for the military, it is decimated by these purges. Almost literally, some 35,000 officers are discharged during 1937 and 1938. 11,000 of them will eventually return to the ranks, though. Roughly 10,000 more are arrested, of which many are executed. The total number of Red Army casualties is much higher, though, as those estimates do not include regular soldiers. They do, however, include a majority of the top generals, army commanders, admirals, and army commissars. On November 17, 1938, Stalin calls for the end of the purge. Its intensity slowly but steadily decreases over the rest of the year. Also in November 38, Voroshilov writes how the enemy has lost his eyes and ears in our ranks, and how the number of purged military personnel is fairly impressive. Sure, he said, there might still be dangerous people in the Red Army ranks, but they should be found carefully and not by, quote, shooting from the hip. This suggests that Voroshilov too thought the purges were too carelessly executed and that many innocent and in fact essential people died. And the fact is that a vast wealth of experience was destroyed when large numbers of Red Army officers were executed, and the fact is that many inexperienced new ones took their places. The final wave of execution is designed to create distance from the terror. In an attempt to wash his hands, Stalin has Yezhov arrested on April 10, 1939. Reaping what he sowed, Yezhov is charged with incompetence, collaboration with the Germans, and homosexuality. He is found guilty of treason and will be shot February 4th, 1940.
You're like, no matter what position you hold, it doesn't matter. Like I said, your life is at risk. How the tables have turned on that guy. This is a joke, man.
But the big question remains, why did Stalin do all of this? There was no military fascist conspiracy, the one that got Tukhachevsky killed.
Maybe in his mind, he's thinking that there was some sort of conspiracy, and it's real, and, people are out to get him. Because he's also been assassinating a lot of people. So he's also having thoughts that, there might be someone in the background trying to kill me. So he's paranoid. Definitely, he's paranoid. Just like in the title, Stalin's Paranoid Military Purges. He's paranoid.
The Trotskyist, fascist, and counter-revolutionary plots, too, were mainly just figments of paranoia and distrust. Evidence was, in most cases, the product of forced confessions under torture or was created by NKVD agents. So, while the whole country fell into a culture of purging, it seems that it didn't serve a clear purpose at all. And some theories seem plausible until you take a closer look. The most common one is that Stalin simply pursued total power, that he wanted to get rid of anyone who was, is, or might become his opponent. But that does not explain the grand scale of the purges, ranging from high-ranking officers to ordinary workers or soldiers. Another common explanation is Stalin's paranoia. He saw civil disobedience and internal conspiracy everywhere and was afraid of a foreign invasion of the Soviet Union. But we don't know if he was actually paranoid. Historians are not trained to diagnose anyone with anything, and since Stalin is dead now, neither can psychiatrists. But even if he was paranoid, why did he decide to purge his military now, with the growing prospect of war? For war is looming in 1937 and 38, that is for sure. The Soviet military budget skyrockets in the late 1930s. Stalin definitely knows that something is up. The Second Sino-Japanese War breaks out in 1937. Keep in mind that Manchuria borders the USSR. At the same time, Hitler is rearming the Rhineland, rearming his army, and aiming his arrows to the east. But still, Stalin disables his Red Army by removing a ton of experience and vision. That's not a smart move if you're about to enter a war, you might think, right? But think of this. Ever since the revolution, 20 long years before the start of the Great Terror, many groups, movements, individuals, and states have tried to influence Soviet politics. Political feuds left losers bitter in dead-end positions, and so loads of enemies have been made along the way, many of whom are still somehow operating in the Soviet Union. And though the many smaller or larger uprisings and attempts to overthrow the Soviet government were manageable in the 20s and the early 1930s, would they still be manageable during a war with Germany or Japan, or both? So in the event of war, those internal enemies, old and new, might become a big problem. Cynically speaking, Stalin and his government had made an enormous mess to get where they are in 1937, and they want to clean house before inviting new guests. Stalin deals with all his old enemies, or with friends he thinks might challenge his position in case of a war. The whites from the Russian Civil War, they have to go. His 1917 revolution buddies, they too have to go. Nothing is to be left to chance. And as I said, Stalin figured that it's better to kill a few too many than not kill the one who is going to overthrow you. So it seems like it was precisely because of the threat of war that Stalin decides to do this at this moment and on this scale. But ever so tragically, hundreds of thousands of innocent people die. Fathers, mothers, brothers, friends, co-workers, the famous and the unknown, they all pay the price for Stalin's hunger for security. As one author writes, Moscow always considered moderation a greater danger than excess. Stalin himself saw it as contributing to the greater good, though. After the war, he will go on to say about those killed in the Great Terror, who will remember all these scoundrels in 10, 20 years? No one. The people must know. They removed their own enemies. In the end, each got what he deserved.
And this guy is still celebrated in Russia? Yes.
But think of the effects it all had. We can't know if one of the purged leaders, officers, farmers, or workers would have conspired against Stalin, or if they would have succeeded. However, we do know that the military purges left a devastated Red Army behind. Not only are the ranks shaken and thin in manpower and experience is lost, as is the trust in the Army's higher-ranked officers and leaders. The Red Army must be drastically reorganized, and it may take years to get back on its feet. Years it does not have, and that will become very clear very soon. Because in December 1939, the Soviet Red Army will make war with Finland, their tiny neighbor to the northwest. And while that Red Army massively outnumbers the Finns, it will completely overestimate its own capabilities. Without the experience of well-trained officers, and without the strategic vision of men like Tukhachevsky, it will nearly suffer a humiliating defeat at the hands of a far, far smaller enemy, and the bare victory it achieves will be at the cost of grotesquely disproportionate casualties. In Germany, Adolf Hitler is watching. He and his military leaders are delighted at the self-destruction of the Red Army. Should the mighty German Wehrmacht choose to attack towards Moscow, how on earth is this remnant, composed of junior officers, going to stand a chance against the glorious German generals and their clockwork war machinery? Maybe, just maybe, the answer lies in the deaths of tens of millions of more Soviet citizens. If you'd like to see one of our World War II in real-time videos, the one about the beginning of the Winter War between the Soviet Union and Finland in 1939, you can click right here for that any moment now. Our TimeGhost Army member of the week is J.B. Spence. I mean it when I say that we would not exist without people like J.B. Spence. So be like J.B. Spence and join the TimeGhost Army at patreon.com or timeghost.tv. Subscribe, ring that bell, and, well, if you're wondering if Stalin was really paranoid, think of what he said to Nikita Khrushchev at a later point. I'm finished. I trust no one, not even myself. Vashi zdarovye. See you next time.
Okay guys, that's it with Stalin's paranoid military purges, the Great Terror Between Two Wars, 1938, part 404 by TimeGhost History. Yeah, this purge really, it was utterly unnecessary. It was just overkill. Like Indian Idol stated that, you know, the government smashed a walnut with a mallet. You know, they used so much force to destroy this little nut, thinking that they were defeating these unseen enemies within the ranks of the military, within society as a whole. Destroying the military institution, the culture within the military, destroying society, you know, taking away family members, taking them to concentration camps and killing them there, or killing them slowly as they work to death in these camps. And this was hundreds of thousands of people. 600,000 people were, you know, passed judgment on them, saying that they're criminals, saying that they have betrayed the government, and they were sent over to be executed. And many of them also sent to those prison camps, just like that. And those within the higher echelons of Stalin's government also thought that their places were secure, that their positions were untouchable, and that they had the complete trust of Stalin. He killed everyone that was close to him. He killed all of his friends, all of his comrades, as he would like to call them, all of his people. Anyone that he would have thought would be a potential threat to him, he got them killed. And I think he was paranoid. I think he was paranoid because in his pursuit to become the leader of Russia, he did a lot of terrible things. He killed, assassinated a lot of his political opponents. You know, he made sure that they were silenced. And the thing is that the ghosts of those people and the hundreds of thousands of people that were killed in by his direction are now haunting him. Anyone can be an enemy now. Anyone who looks at him in a funny way or talks about things not in a way that he would trust, he would have to take them out as soon as possible. And it's crazy. It's really just crazy. And that's why I'm asking myself, like, how is it possible that Russia survived their wars against Germany? You know, when Germany, when Hitler was, you know, taking a focus on Russia and thinking about, you know, taking the key cities of Russia. They were lucky. They were very, very lucky. Huh. Okay, guys. That's it. That's it for tonight with Between Two Wars. Remember, guys, if you want to check out the original video as well as TimeGhost History's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. And I will see you guys next week, Tuesday. Okay? Bye-bye.